this next person we're interviewing, we wanted to bring someone from Google. Last year we had Sergey and the self-driving car, and Google's clearly one of the most important companies in the internet space. And this particular executive, I think it's really important this year, given all the scrutiny of Google's business going forward. He's also someone I've actually known for almost 25 years. I started covering the internet when I was 5, obviously. But he's at Netscape. I met him at Netscape when Netscape was in its great rise and then subsequent fall. And he's always been a lovely guy, and he's now running all of business at Google. Omid Kordestani.
How are you?
Thank you. Have a seat. So I was just saying how young we were back then. It was a long time ago.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no problem.
Great to be here.
What were you doing at Netscape then? I forget. You were head of sales, or?
So I started on the strategic licensing side of the business when we could actually back then charge for software like the browser, and then Microsoft made it free. And then we had this big struggle to actually realize that we need some
sort of monopoly case.
We actually had to reinvent the company into this online services company. So I was running all sales and business development with Mike Homer.
That's
friend.
right. Yes, the wonderful Mike Homer.
Yes.
Who we miss very much.
Thank you, by the way, for the wonderful piece on Dave Goldberg.
Oh, wonderful.
Your friend.
He was a good friend of mine, too.
Thank you.
So let's talk about now. Why in the world did you come back to Google? What was your motivation? Because you're a wealthy man. You were there very early to Google. You had retired, sort of, or retired, essentially.
I took a break for personal reasons. I wanted to focus on my family, and
that sounds like when someone gets fired. But go ahead.
But I stayed connected with the company. So Larry asked me to stay involved as an advisor.
And what was that? What did that entail? I always
just spending friendly time with him. Every other month or so, I would come into the company, spend lunch with him or a couple of hours with him, just talk about what was on his mind, some of the challenges he had, and just provide input that I thought may be helpful to him. And so we always stayed connected as friends and as a very friendly advisor. And I took some time off, and it was wonderful just having this calendar that I could control finally for the first time in my life. And spend time with entrepreneurs just as advisor, and then a lot of passion for sports, golf, tennis, yoga, all that good things. And Larry called me last summer when Nikesh was leaving.
Were you living in London at this point? Or?
No, I was back in California. I was also I joined the board of Spotify at the time.
That's right.
And Vodafone.
You wrote about it.
So I stayed connected, obviously, to the business world in different ways. And when Larry called back, I said, look, I don't even know if I can do this job. The company has tripled roughly. I left when it was 20 billion and roughly 20,000 employees, and roughly had tripled on all those metrics. Right. So I said, I don't even know if I can do this job. Let me come back and see how I can help.
Why did you want to do it? What was the?
I love the company, and I love the people there. Right. And I came back on an interim basis, and just fell in love with the company again. The perspective you get also when you have a break is that all the problems are interesting. So the issues we have or the challenges we have are all interesting, and then the enthusiasm in the company, this marvelous desire to have impact in the world is there. And
why did you leave in the first place? I mean, it's interesting to come back. I mean, some people don't do that.
I left honestly because I'd never stopped in my life before. I was an immigrant. I lost my father when I was very young. Moved to this country and barely made ends meet, and focused on education and hard work, and I had never stopped in my life. I'd never taken a pause, and it was a wonderful time to do that. And I thought Google was in a great position. You reach this point where your senior management is ready to move on. So Sheryl Sandberg, who used to work for me, went to Facebook. Tim Armstrong went to AOL. And I felt like it's time for the next level of leadership in the company to rise. And that's when I decided it's a good time to leave. And it was just ironic that 5 years later, it was an opportunity to come back.
Right. So how did he convince you to do it? Just that you thought it would be challenging for you. You were ready for challenge.
Yeah, and I just decided to really be honest with myself and listen to my heart. Came back and decided to see, can I add value? Do I still enjoy the place? And is the job interesting enough? And And all of those were true. The people of Google, the employees are really incredible. Our partners, our customers are really interesting.
You're also at Google at probably a more challenging time, that it's people are starting, Wall Street's starting to get nervous about things. Peter Kufka wrote me a memo of things to ask you, which was really helpful. And the first line was, search is so boring. But it's your engine, but it's sort of the, is that the old Google, but because it's paying for everything else?
Yeah, but I don't see it that way, because I feel like the mission of the company, which we all know, hopefully, it's this.
What is the mission of the company now under you?
It's really still organizing the world's information, and I view it as the way that we access this information has changed. So this transition to mobile that we all talk about is very real. We now have more mobile searches happening on Google in our top 10 countries. So that transition has happened for us.
But they're not as lucrative, correct? Is it a more challenging environment?
The monetization level is different, but we're.
Can you talk about how different? What's the?
It depends by category. So it depends by vertical. Certain categories is actually equal or even higher. And I think what we consider on the business side we're really good at, and on the technology side as well, is that we understand intent. We really understand, and Larry's original mission was ideally you can. Google could read your mind and give you the answer that you're looking for. And with mobile devices, that's even more true today. They're next to us. It's, we all talked about it. It's the first thing we look at in the morning, and some of us sleep in bed with it. And
all of us here do, just so you know. Everyone here. It's
an impressive audience here.
Yeah.
And
no, losers, really. Go ahead. Sorry. True.
But so we understand that intent, and that job for us is actually very interesting to solve that problem. The world of apps today has created, in some ways, these walled gardens, and for us, it's an interesting challenge to go find the answer that you're looking for in different ways, and be more predictive, and Google Now, and trying to figure out when you arrive in a city, how's the traffic looking? What is the places you should check out?
Where do you imagine your desktop business being? What is happening to that? Because that's been the driver of much of your revenue. Continues to be.
Yeah, it's a big part of our revenue, but the highest growth now is in all these other categories. The highest growth in our areas of focus is in mobile, is in video, is in programmatic. Play and is a huge opportunity and great success for us. The Google for Work business and cloud computing is fantastic. Evan was here yesterday, and they run on Google Cloud right now. So it's all these new businesses that are really exciting me.
Do you imagine an end for that search business, or change?
I think change, definite change.
Just on these different platforms?
Yeah, on these different platforms, the way search is going to get integrated in different ways. We have indexed now about 30 billion links within apps. So we're trying to be very helpful to our users by understanding how they're spending their time, not just on the web, but within these apps.
Do you think Wall Street understands that? What is your relationship with them? Because they'll start to talk about, it's starting to be a meme, like the search business is going to be sort of similar to what happened to Microsoft, the software business, the desktop business. Do you think that's true?
I think as we keep executing here and show more results, and tomorrow Sundar and his talk at I/O will just show us the progress we're making on the various fronts on the product side. In some ways, obviously, we're a bigger company, and a lot of the exciting companies. I loved Brian's talk just right before us. Some of these new models are exciting for the street to focus on and for the press to talk about, but we are very excited within Google on everything that's happening there. And then we have this natural curiosity that also, which leads us to all these other areas that we're investing in as well.
I do want to hear about that as you as a business person.
Sure.
We won't go quite to Moonshots yet, and the crazy side of the company. Not the, you know what I mean, like where are we going to make money someday? So where do you see the most comments? Because sometimes it feels like there's nothing Google doesn't want to get into, nobody's beeswax that they don't want to get into. Where do you think the most promising areas of growth for you going forward as a business person?
So I'm very excited about our core business. I think the core business, again, changing with mobile transition, with video being so important, programmatic buying. If I may quote my friend Tim Armstrong, years ago he used to say we need the CMO dashboard so the CMOs could figure out how to allocate their spending in marketing. And finally those visions are coming together. And the products are there now, and our partners, advertising agencies, our customers figuring out how do we make this whole ecosystem work is a big area of focus for us. So
you're talking about the search box, or just getting your advertisers to the right people?
Getting the advertisers to the right people. Right. And then on the search front, the same challenge. As the world has shifted to mobile, as we are now in this balance of mobile web and apps, trying to make sense of all that for users. I mean, if you think about it today, in some ways, this apps world is so primitive. I mean, it was the great vision that Steve had and what he created with iPhone. And then the world is kind of just starting to grapple with what's possible, really. I mean, in some ways, it's so primitive that you have to leave one app to go to another, to do another thing, and to search for a piece of information that you need to come back and paste into this other app.
Is the search box, when is that going to be over? And the words, like, what do you imagine replacing it? Because the idea of, to me, I think in 20 years, typing a word into a box will seem insane.
Yeah.
Or
just
silly.
Like driving a car would, I think.
Well,
as
yes.
Well. We'll get to that.
You have your way.
But I think the way it's going to change is the way you're already seeing the early starts of this. These search assistants, if you will, or applications like Google Now, where it's more predictive, it understands you, it, given the permissions you give it, it can be very helpful to you. That our job is then to make sense of this technology, make sense of where this information resides, and be able to get the answers like we used to, where you had to type it. We can now be more predictive. Use voice. Google Voice today is very, very powerful. It has artificial intelligence, machine learning, all these things that we're employing now and deploying in these apps to make this experience really be powerful.
So commerce. Area Google has been in for,
Yes.
What was it, Frugal, whatever you did. You had a bunch of
Forgotten all that.
Frugal,
that name.
remember that?
Yes.
You were gone that period.
I was there, but
you were there. But what are the aspirations in commerce and payments for Google? Because they've tried it in 6 different ways. It hasn't been as successful as other.
Well, I think several things is happening, right? First of all, 90% of commerce is still offline, and these mobile devices are perfect for discovery and guiding you to where you want your products and finding the products you want, comparison shopping, finding the best price, the closest near you. The number of queries that have this proximity question in it for us is doubled year over year, like the people that ask for near me or where can I buy something. So the focus for us is just, again, figure out how do we make this friction go away for the users so that they can find the best answer. Do people think of Google
like that? Why isn't there a buy button? I mean, the way there's a like button or something.
There is going to be a buy button soon, and we're introducing it in the ad products. It's actually imminent right now. It's starting to
And your goal is to what, be Pinterest, or what is the?
No, it's still to be a very fast connector of our users to the information that's out there.
How do you look at a site like Pinterest? Is that search?
I think it's a wonderful idea, and I think it's this discovery of content, as well as now they're finding ways to monetize that, which is wonderful.
Is that a threat to Google, that kind of search paradigm?
I was having this conversation with Daniel Ek. I joined the board, and he was just in the Bay Area and visiting with me. And
he's here.
Yeah, he's here. Hi, Daniel. And we talked about this. I talked to him about music and the threats to him. And we both have the same mentality. This market is big enough that the true entrepreneurs don't think of it that way, as a threat. We think of it as growing the opportunity here. We still have only 3 billion people on the internet, 1 billion of which are using YouTube, by the way, which is pretty amazing.
Well, I want to get to YouTube.
Yeah, and
I think people see you as a threat, not Pinterest. I mean, do you see Pinterest as a threat?
No. Yeah. So what I mean is the different ways that this media is being consumed now on the internet. I mean, you heard about it this morning from Jonah and BuzzFeed folks. It's all changing, and there's no one right answer here. They started thinking they're going to have the content on BuzzFeed, but then realized that it's all about the sharing.
Right.
So, and it's this focus on the user that we have that's so important. It's just how do we get them to the content and the media that they want to consume, to the commerce they want to do, to the video they want to see in a very fast, seamless way.
Let's go through YouTube, Android, a couple of things. Let's talk about YouTube. Do you feel that it's where it needs to be as a product? You've owned it for what, almost a long time?
10 years anniversary.
10 years,
just happened.
right,
yes.
yeah. is it in the right place, or where does it have to go in terms of monetization, in terms of customer experience? There's been all these exciting video products coming out. It's still the largest. It's still the biggest. I wouldn't say it's the best necessarily experience.
So first of all, I'm really excited about Susan's vision. So she has a really great, Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, and a dear friend from day one at Google. So she has a really clear vision on how she's going to take the service, and we've learned a lot. So you'll see both the service and its functionality change. You'll see the business model evolve. And then we're having great success selling the advertising and doing the monetization today. The watch time continues to increase. The mobile usage continues to increase. The reach
How
of the product is pretty amazing.
How do you assess your efforts to get creators more on it and to monetize? Do you think you've been a good partner to them? Some of them don't.
Yeah, the monetization is great. What's happening is the actual usage is so high now that if you look at the monetization per user, they see that rate changing and declining in some areas. But that's only because the usage is so high. So we just got to do a better job of monetizing bigger and better. And all the conversations I'm having with agencies and customers of ours, they want to do more there. They want to do more collaboration with these creators. I was just at the Brandcast event in New York, and it was just incredible. You see these creators, the kind of success they have, the kind of following they have. The fans were lined up since 5 a.m. For the chance to take pictures with their favorite creators. You meet them and you talk to them. Some of them have 10 million people following them. They don't look at themselves as celebrities. They look at themselves as this community is my friends.
Do you think you've been a great partner to them? Because do you think you've given them what they need to? Because it's still relatively disorganized, doesn't feel like a place, or it is searchable and everything, but do you feel like it will evolve into something else?
Yeah, it definitely is going to evolve. It's going to look much more interactive. It's going to look much more engaging, and we've learned a lot. And I think the point I was trying to raise is the creators really love it, and the audience that's there, that they're reaching, again, the metrics, you've heard some of them, 18 to 49-year-olds, it's the largest reach we have compared to any US cable network. So what's happening is wonderful there, and it's growing, and you're right, the service needs to evolve and become even more
interesting. Will Google ever create content, the way we were talking about this morning, create shows, the way Amazon's doing, or?
Not right now. We're not focused on that. We're really focused on improving.
Not right now. You could.
I mean, who knows where everything is going to lead, but right now we're really focused on evolving the service, working with the creators as a platform, working with the creators to make sure that they're receiving the kind of monetization they're looking for, working with the advertisers so that they can now understand this better. The CMO of Universal there talking, and he's part of NBC and Comcast, and he was just raving about the success they have with low-budget movies that they spent marketing on YouTube and having the most profitability compared to some blockbusters that they've launched. So it's very, very powerful platform.
So Android,
yes,
the monetization there. Some people feel that Apple's sucking up every bit of profit from their phones. What does Google have to do to get more profit out of Android, which is everywhere? I think Apple's at 93%, some enormous number.
Yeah. So Apple does a wonderful job in the premium category, and they're also operating in certain markets like China, where there's just tremendous success there that they reported this last quarter. And we have a very different approach to this, which is we want devices at various price points. We want people that can't afford the most highest end products to have access to the same level of powerful devices that connects them to the world. Android One that we announced now is in 7 countries, so people from Bangladesh to Philippines can now afford these devices. We have 60 OEMs, hundreds of devices, about activation numbers that we see.
Right, I get that. It's sort of like the Microsoft idea. It's like you're everywhere, but you're not making the money Microsoft did.
No, in a funny way, you're right. Is that we have this much more diverse set of offerings, reaching a lot more people around the world. We have premium, obviously, products, but it's through partnerships. So we don't control it end to end like Apple does. So we have to make these partnerships be successful, and then we have to work with them to make the experience for the users as great as possible. But we're having great monetization. The search monetization on mobile is fantastic.
So it's for search for other products that you have.
Exactly.
Is it a Trojan horse idea, or that like we just want to be everywhere so then our services can?
We just
because that is vulnerable to other people just forking it.
It is. The platform is when you don't control every aspect of it, is an open source product. it is more vulnerable. On the other hand, we just have to do a better job innovating there. And again, you'll see Sundar talk about that tomorrow more. And then we have to do a good job monetizing and making these services available. And the experience I have on these devices is incredible. I mean, I'm using the Samsung
They're great
Edge
devices.
right now.
It's just Google's not making a lot of money from them. Like that, you think how much? I mean, when Apple's making all this money, I get the premium product idea, but it's really quite a delta.
Yeah, but they sell a hardware product, right? So Apple sells a hardware product, and you sell a high margin, high-end product. You show a higher revenue. So our model is very different. It's about monetizing search. It's about monetizing the apps that now the world has access to. It's a great business. So
talk a little bit about the more far-range things. And I want to talk a little about working with Larry. We've got a little time because you worked with Larry 1 and now you're with Larry 2. You know what I mean? Like the different Larrys. Let's first talk about the Moonshot stuff. Are you in charge of monetizing that, or is that just?
No. So we really are trying to. I am involved with it in the sense that as a management team, we agree on an envelope for these investments. So we agree on how much we're going to invest in these areas, and then as much as possible, let them take advantage of Google as much as the people in charge of them would like to, but at the same time leave them free to innovate.
Do you think that's still a good idea? Or at some point Wall Street's going to start to get annoyed by, oh, we're working on an invisibility cloak. We'll get there, that kind of thing.
But there's already great success. So we licensed, for example, the smart lens product to Novartis. We're having great progress with the self-driving cars. You know, the tests are going to start soon. We have great AI work that happened in some of the Google Earth projects that comes back to Google and the robotics work. So I just love that spirit of the company. And it's how Larry thinks and how Sergey thinks, which is there are all these problems in the world that in some ways are too small today or too small in general for a big enterprise like pharmaceuticals to invest in. But if I put a few $1 million in here and really see if I can apply technology here and our thinking and our innovation to improve it, wouldn't it be wonderful? So, do
they come to you and say, "Hey, Omid, monetize this. Here's this," or what do you?
No, I mean, we sit together and then we provide advice, let's say, on how we could maybe structure a partnership.
Right.
But in general, what we try to do is have these organizations, as much as possible, be independent.
Given you're the chief business officer, say, how do you monetize a self-driving car? How does Google monetize that? Where is Google's game there? Search?
The lesson I've learned with all of these services over the years, from Netscape days to before that, all over the Silicon Valley experiences, is you got to build it first. And if the users come, then you'll figure out how to monetize it. That's true of all of our friends in the industry, from Facebooks of the world and others, where initially everybody says, how are they going to ever monetize something like that?
Right.
But you got to build it, you got to gain users, you got to gain adoption.
Do you imagine you all making cars? That's a big business.
I don't think so. I think we'll like to do that through partnerships. And,
right. But you're just doing proof of concept.
Proof of concept, and then license the technology and work with partners.
And then it'll depend on mapping all kinds of things in the cars and services. I rode in one. It was great. I was thinking you could create a bar and text and drive at the same time.
You know what's funny about these cars is when you first sit in them, you're very nervous, right?
Yeah.
And then after a while, it's kind of boring because it's so good at following the law. It just stays in the lane, observes the speed limits, observes the distance in front of you. So
I tried to get it to run over Chris Umson, so it didn't. I tried to. I said, keep
the
going.
The product you highlighted, the
exactly.
next car, is not going to have any issues with self-driving cars.
Well,
no
I
license
wanted to see if it would override.
We'll get in trouble.
Yeah, I was hoping it would override and see what would happen. Europe.
Yes.
How big a risk is that to Google's business?
I don't think it's a big risk. I think it's a serious challenge for us, and we're very focused on it. We have great business in Europe, great users in Europe. The metrics are off the charts for us. What is the challenge is that we need to spend time, and which we are heavily, with the proper channels there to make sure we understand the objections they have and deal with them. So it's one of these. It's not the end of the story. We have to. How
successful do you think you've been? Because they look like they're on a collision course with Google.
Yeah, but I spent a lot of time here. I've lived there. I worked there. I was on a board at Vodafone, Spotify as well, briefly, and. First of all, Europe is going through this very difficult period. They had this long recession for a long time, and there's just the start of a recovery that's happening. So you have these great, successful American companies, highly profitable with these global platforms that are are basically at the center stage of the focus and saying, why is this not happening in Europe? Now, in reality, it is happening in Europe. Companies like Spotify started from there, and I see a lot of great entrepreneurs there. We've acquired companies there. So I think that the challenges are frankly more with the European laws evolving, the European single marketplace evolving, and that this open competition actually taking hold rather than more restriction and more regulation.
Well, maybe they don't think it's open. I know President Obama made that argument to me they're not doing as well, and so they're trying to stop our companies. You might just be terrifying to them having 90% or not. What's your number in Europe right now of search?
It depends on the country, but in some countries it is pretty high. I actually talked to one of my
99% seems to show up a lot of places.
Well, I talked to one of my employees from Germany recently, and I said, it must be hard for you, when you have all of this news in the press about Google this and tax issues or that issue, and how do you feel? I said, no, it's tough. Your friends kind of talk about this, and it's in the media all the time, and obviously the media also makes a lot out of it.
Yes, it's our fault you have 99% search
No,
traffic.
but that was my question. I said, well, are the users stopping to use the service? And they're like, no, they love it. They love this product. And so that's the kind of the paradox, right? Is that we don't go there saying, let's go get 90% market share in Germany or 80% market share here. We go there saying, how can we focus on the user to have the best service?
Yeah, I get that, but couldn't Microsoft have said that when they were attacking? They love this free Explorer product, and you know what I mean? Like that's the flip side of being so powerful.
Again, the view there back then, if we all know the story there, right, was that the operating system was the operating system, and products were being bundled with it. I really don't think today that's the case with
You don't think Google
search.
is the operating system of the internet?
I don't think it is.
Right.
Yeah, I think.
Last question.
Yeah.
I'll leave you off of this, and I'll get off of you. Larry Page.
Yes.
Is there a difference working with him now?
Yes.
So, he said.
I think he is his wonderful, curious, idealistic self about changing the world and having impact through technology. He became CEO, so he through that process he dealt with a lot of the complexities of the operations of the company, and I think what's wonderful now is seeing him decide how he wants to spend his time. He's still the CEO, but he's very engaged. He's relying on me to run the business operations. He's relying on Sundar to really bring all of the product organizations together at Google and have created a really wonderful, seamless approach to how we innovate and bring products to market. And he wants to spend his time on the innovation agenda of the company. So in that sense, it's not different because he always cared about innovation, but having been a CEO, he now sees how complex this whole equation is, and that he's really empowering the leaders to help him do that, and it's wonderful. And we have some amazing people around us, supporting us, from our great board members to advisors like Bill Campbell, who is around us, and so some amazing set of people that are involved in the leadership of the company. And
what kind of leader is he from your perspective? You've known him for so long, and he can be a bit of a cipher sometimes.
He is data-driven and facts-driven, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those cases where he wants to have a conversation when it's about real substance and real innovation, something really interesting.
He seems to have gotten a tiny bit of a sense of humor. I was with him when Esther Wojcicki's thing was opening up, and I have this idea that he should buy the New York Times and let me run it. And so I said, you should buy the New York Times. And he went, I buy the New York Times every day. And that is what passes for wit in Silicon Valley. So it was funny. Believe me, when a robot makes a joke, you laugh.
I'll give you one from Sergey. So many years ago, I was in their office, and Sergey, as usual, likes to do handstands and all this. And the assistant comes in and says, you have an invitation from the Queen, and there's this event where somebody's going to get knighted, and then I said, Sergey, you should be knighted one day. You deserve to be knighted. He said, no, I am already. I am Sergey.
He didn't even get that joke either. No. That would be it. Last time I saw him, he was riding a one-wheeled bicycle with no shoes on. So, I mean, there you have it. All right. Do you want to be CEO of Google? Would you ever see that?
You have to ask me first, but I'm happy to help the company in any capacity. I just love the people, I love the company, and I think the mission that we're on is fantastic. So I'm here to stay as long as it feels right and it fits right and I can add value. And that's honestly what I told the leadership when I came back. I said, you know, it's kind of pretty daunting to take over a $60 billion line of business, and I have to see whether I can do it and whether there's reception to my ideas and whether I can have the impact. And as long as that's true, in whatever capacity it is, I'm looking forward to being there.
Questions from the audience?
Yeah, Bob Peck, SunTrust. So Omid, Evan was up last night and he said there's a bubble. I think he meant in the private market side of things, valuations, easier money. Because of that, they can therefore afford to pay more towards top engineers. Google and other public companies pay a lot of their top engineers in stock. So because of that, are you seeing a pressure on the stock and losing engineers and talent? And therefore, how do you show Wall Street you care about the stock going forward? How does that manifest? What are the different ways you can show Wall Street you do care about the share price? And lastly, are large acquisitions for Google off the table right now? Thanks.
Yeah, what are you buying?
Thanks. You know, we generally have been most successful when we understand the space or we have a challenge with a space and then recognize talent out there and buy smaller teams of brilliant entrepreneurs. If I go back to YouTube, for example, we had our own video search product, so we really understood the space well.
It was just awful.
But we understood what the challenges are with it. So when we saw YouTube and we saw the great founders of YouTube, we just jumped on that because we recognized that. So that's how we look at it.
So what are you bad at right now?
Many things.
Yeah.
So we have to improve across the board, but that's what's great.
Payments, I think.
But that's what's wonderful about this space. It moves fast, and we got to get really good at a lot of different areas.
You should buy a payments company, but go ahead. Good. And like, what Wall Street caring about your shares? Google's sort of a little bit. They think that of Google, that they don't care about.
You know, we're hard on ourselves. So we're hard on ourselves, and we so on the product side, you know, there's a lot of great stuff going on, and then a lot of stuff that we want to improve. So we'll focus on it. So back to the question on the stock, I think. We never ever sit around watching the stock. So as a management team, we always view it as if we do a great job with our products and the business, then the stock will play out itself. You heard, you know, I guess Apple have the similar view here. Yeah. So I think that's really the way we have to run the company is to focus on the users, focus on our customers and partners, and then the rest works itself out. And yes, it is very expensive now, and it's very difficult to retain talent because there's so much opportunity. And you have to start with a great environment for this talent to be empowered and work on interesting stuff, be it engineers or business people. And then you have to compensate them really well because it's very competitive.
Two things.
Can you guys make questions quick so we can get them all, hopefully?
What's the status of the deal with Apple? If it's being renewed, when it's going to be renewed, whatever's going to happen with it? And also, when do you start breaking out revenues by different product types or divisions? Because you keep talking about how your CPCs have gone down, and quarter after quarter it was because, well, mobile's not doing well, and then this last quarter it's like, well, now video's doing so well, it's not doing well. So you don't break any of these things out. It makes it very difficult to know what's a success or what's not a success, and sometimes your successes might get counted as failures.
Yeah. So by the way, I personally would like to be able to give more visibility into our business. I think it's this balance between if you start doing that and then you start getting measured on every bit of change that happens quarter by quarter, is that going to really hamper your ability to innovate? So we'll follow the law, obviously, and SEC's guidance, and as long as we follow that, I think we'll get to the right answer, because I love to provide more visibility because, frankly, it helps me on the business side to show the progress we're making in different areas of the business. But
the Apple deal?
The flip side is the challenge you will have. The Apple deal, look, we would love to continue our partnership with them, and we're doing our best to work with them. And so that's all I can say at this time. I mean, the contract is not up for renewal yet, and we would love to figure out a way to work with them.
What do you imagine your chances are?
I think the chances are, once again, it comes back to as long as we do a good job for them and respond to them like any other customer, which a strategic, important customer, then we'll have an opportunity to renew it. And I think we're confident that we can do a great job in terms of monetization.
Is it critical to your business?
It's, you know, it's the nice thing about our business is it's pretty diversified. So yes, it's important because we love to have our products used by a great company like Apple. So I would love the opportunity to do that and renew that. And in fact, I've visited them, and I hope to continue talking to them.
Very quickly, so I do want to ask about diversity. Quick, just one more. Sorry, guys. Go ahead.
You said that you don't see bundling today. We were talking about Microsoft and the antitrust case. When it comes to the GMS agreement on Android, companies that want Google Maps, that want the Play Store, without which you can't have a competitive Android smartphone, must bundle, I believe, around 20
Ralph, we
apps.
have to get a question. Go ahead.
And must make Google search the default. How is that not bundling? How is that different than what Microsoft was doing?
You know, because you can change all of those settings on this phone. So you can change the apps. You can have access to this world of innovation that's out there. Whereas, you know, before you had this operating system that had the majority of market share in the world, and that those products were really tied to that operating system platform. I mean, today, as we were talking, and Apple has this amazing success with their iPhone system. Android is an open operating system. Some people are forking it already and going with different versions of the Android operating system. So for us, it's this question of how are we going to make money on these devices is by having our services there. But users can change that. You can change all those settings.
So diversity, very quickly.
Yes. Thank you, by the way, for having that as a thing.
No problem.
Yeah.
Google's still.
Look, we're all terrible at it, and we've got to be honest about it. And I think Google led the way by getting the stats out there.
Right.
And it's not a silver bullet answer here. Everybody has to work harder at it.
What do they have to do?
All the things you talked about today. So you have to, you don't like the word unconscious bias, right?
Yeah.
So, but that happens in companies, right? People just hire people that look like themselves, and that you have to.
I think it's laziness, is what it is.
And it's laziness. Yes, it's laziness. It's
It's
lack of training. It's lack of getting people to really focus on this correctly. We're spending $150 million on this year. It's not money by itself is not going to solve it. It's the awareness. It's talking about it all the time. It's training people. It's going to other colleges than the top colleges to recruit, because those colleges have their own set of biases. Mm-hmm. So it's a set of activities that we all have to do to improve the situation, and we've got to be diligent about it and not let it go.
Is Silicon Valley a meritocracy? Do you think is that a myth?
I really think it is. I still think that, especially in these kind of companies, I mean, you see these amazing founders today, the way they talk about their business. First of all, I'm convinced some of these guys have been on this planet before. They can't be this wise, this young. Mm-hmm. But I really think that to survive in these companies or to add value to them, you have to do a great job. You have to have great merit. And I think that's what I see and what I believe in.
But you said these guys.
Sorry.
That's okay.
It was one of those.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Unconscious bias.
And unconscious biases we got to fix.
But you didn't mansplain me, so you win. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Omid
Thank you for
Kordestani.
inviting me. Thank you.